Children enrich our lives. Whether they are members of our families, schools, youth or religious organizations, or simply our neighbors, children bring freshness and joy to our days. When we see children, we see smiles and giggles, tumbles and leaps, enchantment and exploration. When adult burdens leave us worried and weary, a child's sudden delight in a butterfly or a family pet or a kite can turn our day around. But sometimes when we see children, we see things that concern and disturb us. We see a bruise, a welt, or a burn that wasn't an accident. We see a child smacked hard in a parking lot or locked inside a hot car. We see young children playing in traffic with no one watching out for them. On sweltering days, we see long-sleeve shirts and long pants on a child who has had unexplained injuries before. Sometimes it's not what we see, it's what we hear. A troubled child confides in us that she has a secret she can't tell because someone would be hurt if she did. A withdrawn child tells us that there's nothing to eat in the house and mommy and daddy are gone for long periods of time. Child abuse is more common than most people realize. Every year in Idaho, reports of physical abuse, sexual abuse, and especially neglect number in the thousands. Since 1963, Idaho has had a child abuse reporting law that requires all adults to inform a law enforcement agency or Children and Family Services within 24 hours if they have reason to believe that a child under 18 has been neglected, abused, or abandoned. Failure to report these concerns can actually lead to criminal misdemeanor charges. Regardless of your profession or organization, simply reporting your suspicions to a supervisor isn't enough. You must make sure your supervisor follows through or make the report yourself. We all want to protect children from harm, and in Idaho it's easy to take the first step. You don't have to be absolutely certain it's child abuse. By contacting your local law enforcement agency, Children and Family Services, or by dialing the Idaho Care Line at 211, you'll be alerting authorities who can assess whether a child needs help. Law enforcement or child protection employees will decide if there is enough cause to respond and how to proceed. When in doubt, err on the side of a child's safety. Children who are abused are rarely only abused once. Simply having a reasonable belief that a child has been abused or neglected is reason enough to call, and it's the law. People who call are not troublemakers. They are people who are worried that a child needs help. You won't get into trouble with the law for calling. Reports made in good faith and without malice are immune from civil liability. Although no one wants to see a child harmed, people are sometimes hesitant to call.
I know the parents. It's really awkward.
I'm just afraid that involving the police or social workers could make the situation even worse.
What if they get even more angry or abusive after I call? That's why I don't report it.
I'd hate to be responsible for a family being torn apart.
Whatever the reason, children are never protected by silence. Calling is the first step to protecting children and to helping families. If Child Protection Services determines the child faces current and ongoing threats to their safety, social workers develop a safety plan with the family to allow the child to stay home. But if the child's safety cannot be ensured through that safety plan, the child may be removed from the home by law enforcement or the court. For a time, the child may stay with relatives or in a foster home. When children must be removed from their home, Children and Family Services again works with the family to develop a plan toward the child's safe return home. How do you know when you should call? Some children spend a few hours at home alone after school because their parents have to work. Children from families with less money often can't dress as well as children from families with more money. And all children get bumps and bruises in the rough and tumble of play. Care enough to call if a child is young and left alone, lives in a house with health or safety hazards, has no home or emergency shelter, has nothing to eat and looks hungry and underweight. Call if the child has injuries such as bruises, welts, cuts, bite marks, or broken bones with no appropriate explanation. has burns or bruises that look like the object used to inflict them, has a pattern of repeated injuries, has disclosed that he or she has been hurt by an adult, or wears clothing that is too warm for the season and that may be concealing injuries to arms or legs. Also call when you have reason to believe that children are being used in a sexual way. For example, when they have told you that they have been touched in a private place. They have to play games they don't like. They have to keep something a secret. Someone will be hurt if they tell the secret. When you call, you'll be asked some specific information. You may not be able to answer all of the questions. That's okay. Just supply the information that you have, which may include the child's name and family's name, address, and phone number, the child's current location and whether he or she is in immediate danger, the license plate number of the car the child is in, a description of any injury to the child and when and where the incident occurred, names of other people who may have information, why you have concerns about the child's safety, additional information about the child, family, or caregivers that may be helpful, your name, address, phone number, and relationship to the child, unless you have chosen to make an anonymous report. If you give your name, every reasonable effort will be made to maintain your confidentiality, although the family can sometimes figure out who called. Other people may have called before you, but your call may be the missing piece in the puzzle that lets the child get the help he or she needs. Sometimes calls are made by adults who observe that a child may be in danger. At other times, an abused child may approach you. If a child tells you that he is being harmed, listen attentively. If what he says gives you reason to suspect child abuse, reassure him that what he has told you is so important that you're going to contact someone else who will help him. If he only gives you a hint, for example, if he simply says, "Daddy hurt me," ask him to tell you more about that. If he says he can't tell you, ask him what would happen if he did. Likewise, if a child doesn't come to you first but has physical injuries or marks that trigger your concern, you might say to the child, "Tell me how you got that bruise." In neither case should you try to pry details out of a distressed or evasive child. Just report your concerns to law enforcement or Children and Family Services. They have been trained to talk to children about these issues. If you ask too many questions, you can make their job harder and you may even interfere with the interviewing process. As soon as you have reason enough to suspect child abuse, stop asking questions and start calling. Child abuse won't disappear just because we ignore it. It is a difficult and disturbing topic. We all wish we would never see it, but unfortunately, too many of us will. Children who are suffering abuse or neglect depend on adults to bring these dangers into focus. Please care enough to call.